critically analyzing global affairs. The Muckrakers on today's News Talk, TNT.
Well, hello and a very warm welcome back to the Muckrakers with me, Andrew Eborn, the glorious 12th of August. And here on the Muckrakers, we pledge to continue to tackle the most pressing and controversial news issues of our time. Our mission, as always, is to provide more light and less heat, although I've just discovered that the way to kill a scorpion is to shine light on it. That another day. Basically, we're going to continue our unwavering quest to uncover the truth and to inform, educate and entertain with dignity and respect. And it's vital that we don't just ask the questions, but question the answers. Well, today we're going to talk about the development in the conflict between Ukraine and Russia and the quite shocking news that we've had in the last few hours. But also, to help to sort of unpack all of that, I'm delighted that I'm joined yet again by Martin J. and Dr. George Szamuely. I've been practicing Martin's name all week. It's going to be good. Now, Martin, I've got to tell you, is an award-winning journalist. He's editor of the Maghrebi.org and Levantis.me. His career spans over 30 years, which has seen him work in over 50 countries. He has to keep moving. A host of big media titles. But what I love most of all is on his Twitter page, he proudly proclaims that he's been fired by all the media giants. And CNN, who I fully support always, good journalists, but a pain in the backside. I'm beginning to understand why. Dr. George Szamuely is a senior research fellow at the Global Policy Institute in London. He's written for innumerable publications. And if you still haven't bought it, go out and get his brilliant book, Bombs for Peace, NATO's Humanitarian War on Yugoslavia. Welcome back to you both, gentlemen.
Good to be with you, Andrew.
It's nice to see you. So last night, I want to start off this. We said au revoir to the Olympic Games in Paris. The star-studded farewell Paris Games. It featured performances from all of your favourites, the French indie band Phoenix. We also saw Tom Cruise did a stunt, and there was then her and Red Hot Chili Peppers and Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre and Billie Eilish. What were the highlights for you, George?
Well, I always feel when the Olympics come to an end, a sense of relief, thank God that's over, because, you like all of these kind of global events that are hyped up and kind of enforced on the public that, you must take an interest in every aspect of this. You must get excited and enthusiastic about everything that's going on. So you finally, it's come to an end. For me, there weren't really that many highlights. Most of the events I just find ridiculous. Why they're even being in the Olympics? Why do we have golf in the Olympics? I mean, why do we have rugby in the Olympics? Why do we have football in the Olympics? Basketball. In other words, these are all big sporting events that have their own competitions, which are themselves big, spectacular, multi-million-dollar events televised around the world. And again, we're supposed to get very, very excited about them. So, I felt like, what did I, will remember? Well, I would just remember the kind of sporting events, a few sporting events in the Olympics that I find kind of interesting, which is mainly track and field. So I thought the 100-meter event was amazing. I've never seen anything like that, where nobody really knew who won that. And even however many times you see it, you still can't be sure which one of them really won. And if I'd come in second, I'd be a little aggrieved that I didn't get the gold medal, since my foot crossed the line first. But anyway, and then there were some events there, like the pole vault, which I always enjoy, the high jump, which I always enjoy. But the rest was, I thought, fairly mundane. I thought it was just like any other Olympic Games. And so in the end, with Olympics, you kind of think back on Olympics of the past and, which of them had any significance. Most of them didn't. Most of them, you now eminently forgettable. But there are one or two that maybe we can talk about, which are etched in memory, but for reasons other than sport.
Yeah, no, you make some very interesting. It was probably one of the most controversial Olympics we've had for a little time. What was your take on it, Martin?
I found the whole thing to be deeply boring. I didn't watch any of it. Sorry, I can't spend time in front of the TV watching watching sport, and the whole French kind of tableau around it as well. I found also off-putting. I do find it extraordinary. I'm going to upset our French viewers if we have any, but I do find it so extraordinary how the French sense of self-importance is always something that sticks with the mind with these international events. And I think it will be remembered for the opening ceremony, which was vulgar, stupid, woke, and just ill-conceived. The whole gender bender, LGBT nonsense, just absolutely vulgar on so many levels. And I think it would also be remembered for the boxing tournaments, the women's boxing tournaments, and this kept popping up on my timeline, so I know about it. The women boxing tournaments that were basically won by men who are in transition to becoming women, and those same boxers who were banned from other previous international events, managed to slip through the net and win their medals in Paris. So, and I think the final event last night, Tom Cruise, Red Hot Chili Peppers, and all that. The boss of the whole event made a little speech. His name was Monsieur Estanjo, if I pronounced his name correctly, and he said, "Together we lived the games as never seen before. Will even took part in the surfing finals in Haiti. From one day to the next, time stopped, and the whole country vibrated." I mean, the idea of all those Frenchmen vibrating together at the same time, it did put me off somewhat. Enough to put you off your cornflakes. Can we get on with the other subjects? I just found it incredibly boring.
I think, well, I'll tell you what, one of the fascinating facts I found, apart from the glory of winning the medals, is that different countries celebrated in different ways. So the Philippines, for example, just a fascinating fact, Carlos Yulo, who won 2 Olympic gold medals in Paris, in addition to his 2 gold medals, he received £350,000 from the Philippines, plus some unusual rewards. He got car accessories, free wedding photography, haircuts, furniture, free food for life, and what I love best of all, he even gets some free colonoscopy. That's all worthwhile. So it is amazing, these sort of sponsorship deals. But you're right, we also said goodbye to Andy Murray, that he retired from tennis. And as you say, it was the most inclusive IOC games ever. They integrated a number of new sports, including climbing and skateboarding and breaking and surfing, all of your favourites. Breakdancing, you love that sort of stuff. But Gay Paris was indeed front and centre. They criticised the scene at the beginning in the opening ceremony, where and they insisted it was the Greek god Dionysus rather than portraying the Last Supper. But rather sadly, Thierry Reboul, who was the ceremony's director, he received death threats about that, which is why they sort of toned the whole thing down. But just to pick you up on, as you did mention it, about the gender question in the boxing, so there were 2 images which will be the resonating ones in amongst everything else. There's Algerian boxer Imaine Khalif, who won the gold medal, and Taiwan's Lin Yu-ting on the medal podium. Basically, it will go down as some of the most untouchable in history. It raised all sorts of questions about men in women's sport and transitioning. But just as a point of information, Imaine Khalif was never has never transitioned. It was one of these sort of conditions where basically that she's always lived her life as a female, but in certain sports they have all sorts of strange tests about whether it's testosterone or so on and so forth. What we have to do is look at the rules and regulations. So it was the IOC, if you like, who basically said if you say you're female on your passport, that's what we're going to go with. But yes, interesting take on all of that. We'll see what happens next. Just on George's point about the wonderful 100 meters, AI and technology advanced so great. One of the great images I loved was the AI-powered cloud-based replay system, where it basically fused images from multiple camera angles, and so you could have these 3D reconstructions of wonderful, like a Matrix-style replays, if you like. And it was Omega's timing tech, which was used to create data-driven visualizations, and that's where you saw Noah Lyles. He won 0.005 of a second, so quite extraordinary. A happy release for people from the world, or do you think it's a distraction trying to cover something else? Final word, George. What do you think?
I don't think it's at all a happy release, and that's really the point, that's what's so phony about the Olympic Games, because and I was saying historically the greatest Olympic Games ever was the 1936 Berlin Olympics. It's immortalized in Leni Riefenstahl's remarkable film, and it was up until then the most spectacular Olympic event ever. and Germany romped home with all the medals. I mean, we all remember, of course, Jesse Owens, everything, but at the same time, Germany won most of the medals. But did that suggest that all peoples were coming together, that there was no, that somehow sport was ensured the transcendence of national and political differences? No, it didn't. And that's really the point, that there's something really phony about this a claim that somehow, we're playing sports and somehow this is bringing peace to the world. Who wasn't, you said inclusive, well, who wasn't included? The Russians. The Russians were not included. And this wasn't even just before Ukraine. Russia has been steadily banned from these Olympics on the claim that they are doping. Well, does anyone really believe that no one else in the world in athletics is doping other than the Russians? This was entirely made up based on sort of the claims of one person who had worked for the Russian State Sporting Authority, that Russians were systematically doping. No real evidence had been presented of this. It's not like Russians were failing these doping tests, but nonetheless, the IOC steadily banned Russians, and this has now been, I think, ever since the 2016 Olympics, Russia has been banned from these events. And again, Russia which has always been a very strong sporting nation, wasn't there. So, Macron, who's presiding, we're bringing all these people together. Macron is one of the worst warmongers in Europe, as are the British. So, please don't tell us that we're taking part in sport and this is so great and we're bringing people together. You are doing exactly the opposite in your day-to-day existence.
Yeah, so some very interesting points.
This is the Muckrakers on today's News Talk, TNT. To hear a replay of this hour, go to episodes at tntradio.live